Welcome to part 2 of the Ryan Gilmore Port City podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Vincent with eXp Realty. I'm a real estate agent here in Saint John, New Brunswick. If you haven't seen the first part of this podcast, this part here is a continuation of that same podcast, much more caffeinated, and we go even deeper into some very interesting topics. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, if there is any sensitive ears in the room, you may want to be careful or just skip out of this video because we do a little bit of cursing and swearing. But besides that, I think this is going to be very enjoyable for you. Let's get into it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I liked about the boxing club, like being down there and being involved in all that, was it was like you got to see so many different types of people. And the thing that I really liked is I got to see so many people fail, right? And I got to see how they react to that. Some people take it like a champ and they come back way better, and other people just crumble, absolutely crumble under any type of failure at all.
Yeah.
Right. Which
you have to expect it, man. You have to expect to come in and have the humility to be able to learn and be able to lose. That's the scary thing about the fight business, though, right? Is that it's normally public. It's not like you're losing in private. Like there's people around, and egos get hurt. It's less the person being hurt. It's that ego you just killed. You just killed somebody's ego. Now they're walking around questioning everything about themselves.
Oh yeah, I took a bad loss in Woodstock a couple years ago. Not a bad loss, but I mean, like, it was a hard fight, and that's when I realized I shouldn't compete in that weight class. I was competing super heavyweight, right? And
Damn. So how much do you weigh?
Right now I'm 185.
185. What's super heavyweight? Isn't heavyweight the max?
205 and up.
205 and up.
Yeah. So
that's a dangerous weight to fight in, man. Because like guys could be like 285.
Yeah.
Pure muscle,
these guys weren't. I fought 2 or 3 times as super heavyweight, and after it wasn't the skill, it wasn't the size. It was just, why take that amount of damage if I don't have to?
Right.
Like, I ended the fight with a broken nose in 3 spots, and my hand was broken. And it was like we were both just like, we were just guys that hit hard and just tough dudes. And they ended up calling it for me because the ref he just had enough. Right. Like, I was spitting blood everywhere. Like, but I was completely, you can watch the fight. I'm not making anything up. If anyone wants to fucking take a look at the fight, I was completely unfazed.
Is that on YouTube?
Yep.
Cool.
I was completely unfazed. He broke my fucking face because I had a mission. And this is the one thing I learned. And he was a tough guy, and he hit hard, and he's a good boxer. And I talked to him afterwards. We have a good relationship, because it's just fucking, it is what it is, right? I mean, you fight, you win, someone wins, someone loses, right? And I've seen him fight afterwards, and I've kind of like talked to him before he fought, right? And he saw when he sat across the ring from me, when he knew he broke my nose, right? Because how
many rounds was that?
That was in the third round. He broke in the second round, he broke my nose. At the end there was 20 seconds left in the fight, and the ref called it.
Is that with the headgear? Do you guys have the headgear on?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You do? Okay. Yeah. How long are those boxing matches normally?
3 rounds.
3 rounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and then they're 2 minute.
Rounds.
Is it 2 to 3 minute rounds?
Depends what skill level you're at. But they'll do 2 minute rounds.
That's a long time in a ring with somebody.
It is. Yeah. Especially, it's
That's a long time. If
it is, man, it's a long
like,
time.
Time probably slows down in there. Time slows down in there.
Yeah, if you're not in shape, it's even longer.
right.
If you're not
where's that bell?
Oh man,
where's that bell? You're getting the shit kicked out of you. Where's that fucking bell?
And then you can see.
I need to just think for a second.
You can see people crumble in the corner.
Yeah.
Everyone should experience it.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone should experience some form of combat, just to understand. Just to understand where they stand.
Do you think street fights count or no?
Oh yeah, I mean, not like, it's not advocating street fights, but I mean, there's people I grew up with that I know are hard dudes,
right?
Because they were fighting, and they know what it's like to get punched, right? And they know what it's like to hurt someone. Right? Those are important things to know. First of all, to know your own capabilities and to know your own limitations. Right? Because that dictates how you act in public. Right? Like, someone who's never been checked, they act completely different than someone who has been choked out in jiu-jitsu by some guy, and they're like, no, I'm extremely fragile. right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right. And it breaks that ego, and you can almost tell by looking or by interacting with some people too, right? You can just kind of look at them and tell, like you said, you can tell by the way they behave whether they've been checked or not. And by checked, you mean had a humbling moment
Had
where
anything,
somebody pretty well were dominating them in one way or another,
right?
In one physical manner or another,
right?
It's crazy that people actually can go through life without having ever experienced that.
Oh, I don't want to say I have no respect for those people, but I don't.
So yeah,
because you first of all, you haven't ever tested yourself to that degree. That's important, especially for men. Yeah. We have to understand where we stand. You have to be able to know and at least test it and passed and or failed.
Did you ever do the helmets and gloves when you were younger? Where you throw on like a hockey helmet and then you smash each other with the gloves on?
Yeah.
That's a miserable experience.
Yeah.
That's a miserable, especially because when you get hit, it's almost like there's a larger torque with it because now you got this helmet on that's spinning on your head and smashing on your nose.
Yeah.
I think that was my first experience of some type of violence was helmets and gloves.
Yeah.
With another person where we were actually swinging at full force. And it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
And I think the guy that I was going at was he was definitely bigger than me because I was small. And I just remember like thinking, oh shit, this really is rocking me.
Oh yeah.
This is really just kind of shaking me up. And yeah, man, I think that's important. It's important to go through that. Super important. At the time, I probably thought, what the hell was that all about? But then when you leave there, it's just kind of like, oh, it makes you want to be stronger. It makes you want to be better. It makes you want to, because then you realize, like you said, it's like, okay, there's other people out there. It just makes you want to elevate because you don't want to be that person who gets the shit kicked out of them.
No.
And
that's what happened to me.
It's an interesting thing. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I've never even thought about this. I've never even thought about that before.
No?
Not really how important it is to have this happen to you. I've never thought about how important it is.
Oh, yeah.
But thinking back in my life, I've had a lot of experiences where I've been in different altercations for one reason or another. And it definitely humbles me. And it just makes me feel a little bit more kind of like, you just feel better knowing that you can handle yourself in a situation. Because there's been situations where I've handled myself. There's been situations where I've gotten handled.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, it just makes, like, I feel like that helps me navigate life now. Because the funny thing about being a man is that when you're looking at another dude, there's always the thought of, if this doesn't go well, we could just start kicking the shit out of each other.
Right.
This guy could fucking just grab me.
That's the first thing I think of.
Right.
Because of the
I don't think some people realize that.
No. Because of how we were trained in the Army, right? When you're clearing houses, you're trained to look for hands, right? So when I come in contact with anyone, the first thing just naturally I think of is looking at hands. Yeah. I always see what's in people's hands.
Right.
Always. I can see if they got wedding rings on. I can see if they have cell phones in their hands. And it's not something that like, I'm like fucking triggered, but like I'm walking around like this. It's just something that's the first thing I notice.
It's just a habit.
So I always notice guys' hands, right?
Yep.
And I mean, there is some sort of correlation between people with large hands and how hard they can hit, right? Because if you look at some of the biggest knockout artists, there was an article, a YouTube thing I watched one time, and the guy was talking about pro boxers and their knockouts and this and that, and he correlated it with hand size. And he's that is it may not be the defining factor, but it is definitely a factor that like the guy's hand. If you know who Shannon Briggs is, Shannon the Cannon Briggs. Cool.
Is he a UFC fighter?
No, he was an old boxer. He was a WBC heavyweight champion. Okay. Right? He has hands on him like this. Huge mitts. Like I think
like Brock Lesnar hands kind of deal. Yeah, that's scary. That's scary.
He trained Jake or Logan Paul for one of their first fights.
Cool. Okay.
He was in Bad Boys 2. He had the dreads on in one of the gunfight scenes. He was a Haitian.
Okay.
Anyway, he's a super funny guy. Just super funny.
Nice.
Right? But they called him Shannon the Cannon, and he wasn't like exactly a one-punch knockout artist, but he hit hard and he knocked a lot of people out. And I seen his hand next to another professional fighter's hand one day.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't have like abnormally big hands or anything.
Right.
And I was like, that guy's fucking hand is huge.
Yeah.
It covered the guy's face.
It was like a gorilla.
And I was like, could you imagine getting fucking sparked by that thing? Right? So I always look at people's hands when I'm sussing people out. The first thing I look at is hands.
Right.
And then you
wonder how big Mike Tyson's hands were.
I don't think he had big proportions, but
Well, he was a small guy for a
Yeah, he
heavyweight.
was. Yeah,
he was a
very small.
He was a short human.
right? He's
Compared to the other
5'10" or
He
5'11",
is,
or
I should say, not was, is.
Yeah.
I just said was because when he was fighting. But yeah, I wonder how big his hands were, because he was an example of a guy who wasn't as large as everybody else,
Not
but
even
it's almost
close.
like he was able to use his size
Yeah.
and that torque.
That's the advantage.
To his advantage,
Yeah.
because it almost threw more torque into everything he was doing. Everything was a tight
Yeah.
hook coming in,
and that was
real
the point
fast
with
too,
his peekaboo style.
and just a violent
Deadly violence.
human.
Deadly violence, right? Efficient, effective violence, directed, right? Like a fucking heat-seeking missile, right? Just on, like just a target. You know, you can learn a lot from. I mean, I only have the perspective of a man. You can learn a lot about being a man by watching other men. Like they don't
Right.
all have to be violent,
No.
right? I learn a lot by one of the things that I have to keep in mind all the time, because I have more of a propensity to be aggressive, and I have to tone that down, because as much fun as it is to be aggressive and have that personality in business, you really do have to turn it down.
You have to be cordial.
Right. I can't be the person that I have a propensity to want to be all the time. That guy has to come out very, very seldom now that I'm older and in business. And
Yeah, that's like a self-awareness thing.
yeah.
right?
So like one of the things I learned, like BB King, he said, it's not always about the notes that you play. Sometimes it's about the notes that you don't.
Right.
Right. So I think it's important to, as a man, to look at all different types of men to try and figure out, what resonates with you.
I actually heard you say that on another one of your Facebook videos where you were talking about a deal you were doing, and you were doing some negotiating.
Right.
And then the notes, it's not all about the notes you play, it's about the ones you don't.
Right.
It was a situation where somebody just had to stop talking.
Right. They just need to shut the fuck up sometimes.
Right. In
To
order
let-
to
to
get
let
the
it
deal,
sink in.
to let the deal come together, to let it all kind of happen.
Sometimes I'm like, why in the fuck are you talking you are talking so much, you can't let that person register what you said.
Right.
And you're off onto the next thing. I don't understand why people just talk so much.
Could be a discomfort thing too, right? A lot of people talk when they're nervous.
Yeah.
A lot of people in a situation, if they're nervous, they just start motor mouthing.
Yeah.
And it's like you can talk yourself out of a deal. You can talk yourself out of a deal where they just become completely uninterested.
Right, because you're bringing things up that maybe they don't even matter, and now you've hit a trigger point where you brought something up that they've never thought about, that now that you have shown them that, and they see it in maybe it is negative, and they see it as negative. Sometimes people just need to shut the fuck up, especially in business. Right, and that's coming from me. I do nothing but talk shit. Right? I do nothing but talk complete shit all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And even me now, I just sometimes just shut the fuck up.
Yep.
Right? I present you with what I want to present you with. Right? I always go in with a plan, and then I just let it sink in.
Yeah.
I just took a class from Chris Voss, the
Love
FBI
it.
negotiator.
Yeah, I love him.
It's fucking dope.
That book, How to Split the Difference.
Yeah, I read
Love
that
it,
book,
man.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How was the class?
Deadly.
Which class was it?
Is negotiating.
Okay.
On negotiating, yeah.
Okay. How long is that?
Fuck. I don't know. 40 minutes if you break
cool.
it all down.
Cool. Yeah, Chris
Yeah.
Voss is awesome.
Maybe
Chris
no.
Voss
It
is
was
awesome.
longer than 40 minutes. It's an hour and
it's
it's an hour and 40 minutes, I think, all compiled together. But
Yeah, Chris Voss is really good. The FBI hostage negotiator. Talk about high stake negotiation.
that's crazy, eh?
Like negotiating for human lives.
Yeah.
And with terrorists.
Yeah.
Everybody says don't negotiate with terrorists. That's exactly what he was trained to do.
Yeah.
Is to negotiate
It's
with
crazy.
terrorists.
This is who
I
everyone
couldn't
is.
imagine doing that, man. Like having human lives on the line. Everything you say matters.
This is who everyone's competing against, is people like this.
Yeah.
People are competing in life against people like this, like Chris Voss, like people who are doing stuff at such high levels. It's so hard to compete against that. That's why people just say no, and they don't do anything.
Would you say that they're outliers though? A guy like Chris Voss? I don't think there's there is a lot of people, but when you actually look at the amount of people in business versus the amount of people that are actually like a Chris Voss, or these like top negotiators that we know of. I think there's less. I think there's a lot less of them. Now, in saying that, but that's something good to aspire to too. Like that's probably why you like learning from someone like that. Why not learn from the best?
Well, 100%.
If I'm going to learn from anybody about negotiating, why not go to the guy who's done it at the highest stakes?
Yeah.
And learn from these people. And that's something that's really cool about the internet that we have now. This was never available to people 20, 30 years ago. They never had the accessibility to learn from millionaires, billionaires, people top in their industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's changing things up. It's almost speeding up the amount of good quality things you have going on, but then it's also dumbing. It's like it's a middle line difference where the middle is getting like, there's a lot of people that just use social media to get distracted.
Yeah.
And they almost unplug from real life. But then there's a certain amount of people that can use it as a tool where they're learning from a whole bunch of people and they're actually excelling and becoming better versions of themselves because they're using it almost as an instructional manual. Let me find people that I want to become. Let me find people that I want to be like. So I find it super interesting, man. And that's something I find it's helped me. Like I've always been somebody searching for information from a young age. Started watching the Joe Rogan podcast super young.
Yeah.
And like just found some of the people fascinating. It's like the things you can learn and finding business millionaires when Facebook like first popped off. And then I started seeing like people give advice that were actual millionaires. I was mind blown.
Yeah.
Going like, whoa. Like you can actually learn from somebody who's done it. You're not just getting Joe Blow's advice down the road, some family member who's never done what you want to do kind of deal. And it's like, now you can actually get real advice from people who are doing it, man. This is
the crazy
wild.
thing is if you really dumbed it down, in my opinion, it torqued people in two different ways, right? It made the people who are willing to learn and want to do exceptional in life, it gave them tools to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think social media did was it made people realize how rich people actually are.
Right.
Because before, I remember I remember life before the internet. Mm-hmm. Right. You did not know. I remember seeing, I think it was before there was all the crazy social media shit. And I would have been like 15. There was a TV show. Oh, Punk'd.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Ashton Kutcher punked some guy.
Right.
And in the show, you could see him.
He's over in the van all the time.
Yeah. The guy that they were punking was in the store, and he kept pulling his. You could actually noticeably see it. Right. He kept pulling his shirt sleeve down like this because they were simulating a robbery. He's pulling his shirt sleeve down, and then they did the whole reveal, and he said, "Jesus, I was so afraid. I have a $150,000 watch on." And I remember thinking in my head, "That's not worth $150,000. Right. There's no watch," because I was a kid.
Yeah,
right? I said, "There's no watch that's worth $150,000." And then when social media comes out, it made regular people. This is why everyone's so bitter now. It made regular people realize how fucking rich people are.
Right.
You own a plane. I own an island. You got to be fucking kidding me. This guy owns an island. I drive a Ford Taurus.
Yeah, especially being from somewhere like New Brunswick. We'd never see
people.
that.
It made people so jealous and so bitter that they're living regular life. Because before, 50 years ago, you didn't know how regular your life was.
No.
Now it's regular because there's a guy that's jumping out of a plane he owns.
It was just life.
Right. So now everyone expects that their life should be like that, and they have no reason or pathway to get there. They just want it simply because they want it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's it.
And then that's where like some of this depression and anxiety and stuff comes in, right? Because you're realizing that your life isn't, and it's almost to a fault too. You like people looking at social media going, my life's not like that, but people are also only sharing the highlights. So
100%.
when we got these pages of people sharing their car, they're sharing their watch, they're sharing the mansion, they're sharing the good life on vacation and all this. What you're not seeing is what it took to actually get there. Nobody's sharing,
because that's not
nobody's sharing the tears that somebody shed for 20 years in a row, being absolutely uncertain of themselves, uncertain if it's going to work out, probably having all their friends doubt them and going through just chaos. Nobody shares that stuff, man. And I think more people should. I think more people should share real life scenarios. It's starting to go that way now. There's a really cool page that I follow. It's called Nature is Metal. Do you follow that on Instagram? It's a page about, it's just animals eating other animals.
Yeah,
normally.
okay,
So
yeah.
it's like lions tearing
Yeah.
apart like hyenas or like a hog or like, and it's like, I like what, and like some people have been like, why do you like watching that? It's like, because this is real.
Yeah.
This is real. This is not two people acting. This is not anybody trying to be anything that they're not. This is a raw, authentic moment in the world that actually just grounds me a little bit on social media.
Yeah.
I like watching this because it's real. And I think you're just about to say this, but it is swinging to people being more authentic because the inauthenticity is almost like a subconscious toxin that's spewing into people.
I don't like saying this word, but it is the most descriptive word that I can think. It's cringy, right? Because my fucking kids say cringy. You know, I don't want to say, but it's truly, you watch some things and you are like, you are so disingenuous.
Yeah.
It is actually fucking hard to watch.
Yeah. You have a multi-unit right across in Saint John here, right across from a lot that is pretty well just fenced in right now and is used as a homeless lot for people in tents.
Yeah.
And I know that recently there's been some tragedies that happened there of someone blowing up and catching fire. And you've been talking about this for a while, but nobody's been doing anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy to say I called it because there was loss of life, but called it because we've seen it before.
And you were right, and like so, you with that multi-unit being right across from it, see it every single day. Where some people, don't actually see that going on. And being from Saint John, I've seen more homeless now than I've ever seen before, ever in my entire life.
That's not up for debate. There's definitely more homeless people.
But it's like, what do you do, man? Do you have any idea of what can be done in this situation? And is it the rising house prices that are leading to it? Is it mental illness on the rise? Is it a poor healthcare system to support people properly? Like,
it's drugs.
What do you think's happening? Is it drugs? Is it drugs?
If you went down the list, right? I'm going to seem like a real fucking dick here too. If you went down the list of all the homeless people, there's 200 something registered homeless people in Saint John, which is not much, but for our population, it is.
That's a lot. There was never
if you went down that list, I would like to know how many people were outstanding citizens, had no criminal record, had a home prior to this,
right?
Versus how many people were troubled teens for whatever reason. I understand that shit happens, right?
Yep.
And there is going to be a certain amount of homeless people. It is just our society now.
That's the issue. It's
how many people was it just inevitable that that's where they were going anyway? You can't tell me that the rising house prices, all that does have an effect, right? It has an effect, but in our market, a lot less than Toronto, a lot less than Vancouver, a lot less than all of those other huge markets where I do believe that more people went from being homeowners and being family people to living on the streets. Right. But also, like, the argument that I have with people is they say, oh, they get living on the streets and they start doing drugs. Well, that starts to become, that's your problem now. I'm not saying
who do you
that
say you're to? You're like the individual
that's
that's on
the individual's
street?
problem.
Yes,
because this is the thing. If you put me on the streets, right? I've never smoked weed in my life.
Yeah.
Right? I am not all of a sudden, because I'm homeless now, just going to start smoking crack.
No, you're going to find a way to get out of that situation.
Right.
You're going to do whatever it takes.
They don't have the skills. They don't have this. They don't have that. I understand all that.
Yeah.
And the mental health stuff is, don't even talk to me about
that's
the mental health.
That's got to be a big part of it, man. That's got to be
But how much of it is mental health? And this is a legitimate question because I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
I'm a welder. I don't have a degree in any of this stuff that is
socioeconomics.
Right, exactly. I don't have any education in it, but I grew up in the South End around a lot of poor people, right? We grew up in a community that wasn't Rosse, it wasn't Quispamsis. Yep. We didn't have any money starting out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I grew up around a lot of poor people, and a lot of those poor people aren't on the street now. A lot of those poor people had a lot of fucking problems. So I always go back to, show me your problems and I'll show you someone with triple the amount of problems that became twice the person you are. And that was what Gary Vaynerchuk said that.
I like that.
Right?
I like
he said, you have problems. Yeah, that's great. You know, and I always think I'm like, people come here from countries where yesterday they were scared of a bomb coming from the fucking sky.
Yep.
And they come here and they drive taxi or they do whatever. And 20 fucking years later, they have a mansion in K Park. How is that possible? And we have Canadians here, right, that had a troubled home life, and now they're homeless.
I know, man. It's that is like almost
handicapped by the system is one of the big things. You can get a welfare check now with no address.
Yeah.
Right. There's a social worker.
Well, the welfare thing, that's almost a lifestyle for some people, man.
It is.
They grow up with it and then they just adopt that style of living. It's a weird style too, because like if you show some of those homes, some of these people have massive flat screen TVs. They got all this stuff.
Go down into one section of the city. You will not see a car before 2015. Right? I had money and I just bought a brand new truck this year.
Yeah.
Right? You go down there and you see the odd BMW, and I'm talking the slums, right?
Right.
I'm talking down, where is it? What do they fucking call it? Down the boulevards?
Yeah.
Down there?
Yeah.
There's no old cars down there.
Like towards Milledgeville is what you're talking about, that area? I know exactly.
There's no cars. There's no old cars down there.
No.
Everything's 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19.
They have nice stuff.
They have nice shit.
It's crazy. It's
Right?
like, what's
It's
going
nuts.
on here? And these people don't work.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, I don't want to shit on people, but like, I don't understand how that's
This is
a way of life for some people. It's because I think it's supposed to be, from my limited understanding, that's supposed to be a
stopgap. It's supposed to be
well, it's supposed to be a like limited like time window. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm in a bad spot right now. I need to sort this out with some welfare, and then I'm going to get back on my feet
Yeah.
and get things going.
System doesn't allow you to do that. My father had a tenant, and she was single mother, and I think she was on the system, and she was getting X amount of dollars, but then she was in school, right? And she would get, I don't know what the number was, say she would get $500 a week from the government on assistance, or $500 a month, or whatever it was. And then she got her education, right? And she went to go to work, and she was making $100 less a month at work than she was.
Right.
So my father ended up taking money off of her rent because he was trying to help her get back on her feet. Man. So he actually reduced her rent so that she was making the same amount of money as she was, and she couldn't keep it going because the child care and and she went right back on the system because it was easier for her.
It's easier. I know. It's a crutch at that point,
and
right?
she was, I'm not belittling her. She had to do what was the best for her family. And
Right.
the best thing for her family at the time, whether it was big or small, was to not have daycare, to not have this, to not have that, and to make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So they literally handicapped her, the system, right? However the system is designed.
Yep.
It was easier and more beneficial for her to stay on the system, spend more time with her daughter, not have to have daycare and run around all the time than it was for her to actually go get a job and become productive, because she wouldn't have been making shitty money forever.
Yeah. So
Right?
then that's an interesting actually correlation. So then how come some of these people who are currently homeless, are they able to apply for welfare?
They're all on welfare.
They're all on welfare?
Yeah.
The homeless people?
Yeah, you don't need an address.
They actually get
You go
money?
to Agar Center, you go pick it up, you get money, and the way that they see it.
But there's just not enough money for them to sustain a proper lifestyle.
No, they can. They just like drugs.
Okay.
Drugs are expensive.
Is that what's going? Because I actually have no
Drugs
idea.
are expensive.
I have no idea. Like I've never talked
This
to
is the
any
thing.
of them. I don't know.
They talk about homeless shelters not having enough space and this and that. And I said, these types of people, the same as people like me, who do not fit into the typical confines of the social structure, have to operate outside of the typical confines of the social structure. I operate outside of those parameters by being self-employed,
Right.
by being my own boss, by only answering to myself, by doing whatever I want to do when I want to do that. I can't really hold an actual job down because of how I'm built, right? These people are no different. They want to live life outside of the parameters. The people who are outside right now in the cold, it's because
fucking terrifying.
they've chosen
Yeah.
to be outside in the cold because they don't like coming in at 12 o'clock at night, because they don't like not being able to be high or drunk when they're there. There's certain things that they don't like about the confines of that particular structure that they would rather operate in agony, suffering outside of those, because it's more important for them to be able to do their drugs or be high or live life how they want to outside of that. They've
So a
chosen
big piece
that.
of it must be the addiction then.
100%. And I don't take it lightly because it is something that affects everyone. But at some point, you have made choices that were not good.
Of course.
You choose the action, you choose the consequence,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you're not old enough to make those decisions, like when you get addicted to drugs when you're a kid, right? Because you didn't exactly have a good family. I understand all of that.
Yeah.
Right? But at some point, you are an adult.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy seeing it here in Saint John because we didn't grow up with a lot of homeless people around here. I remember the first homeless person I seen, I think it was when I was in Kingston, Ontario with the military. I was walking down the street and there was a guy just standing there. I think he was blind. There was an old fella. He had white hair and he just stood against a wall and had his hand out. And I was like, and it almost made me uncomfortable at the time because I wasn't used to seeing that. I wasn't used to people just kind of like being on the street.
Yeah.
And I know it's been more common in big cities for a long time. Like there's always like just since there's been a home, there's been a homeless person.
Yeah.
Since the first shelter, there has been homeless people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like right now, like we live in a first world where probably like nobody needs to be homeless.
No.
But like you said, it's just the addiction. So then it's like, is it the social services that need to be better? Or is it just, do you think there's just some people that are just going to continuously be wired in a certain way that's not going to allow them to function properly?
The system doesn't help because the system, like, take for instance, there's a social worker. Like I talked to common council, I talked to the mayor, I talked to the deputy mayor, and I asked them, and for the most part, like without being a dick, they're fucking clueless.
Yeah.
Right. And I call them out on it. I said, but you don't know what's going on down here.
Yeah, you call them out publicly.
Yeah. And even talking to them. Yeah. And one of the counselors said to me, oh no, we have a social worker that goes down there and checks on them. And she assures me that there is no prostitution or drug abuse being done down there. I said, you have to come down here. You're not living in the right world.
Are you looking at the same thing I'm looking at?
Right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's no way that you can. I said, you want to believe that. That's great, but that doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
Right? You want to believe that there's
saying that publicly.
Yeah,
I makes everybody comfortable.
Makes everyone feel good.
Right.
Oh no, there's no 18-year-old girl turning tricks on 90-year-old men for money. Yeah, there is. I see it every day.
That's sick.
I see it every single day, and I'm a father of 2 girls, and I'm a father of 1 boy. Right? And that to me is absolutely disgusting.
Yep.
You know, it's disgusting and unacceptable. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Yep. Right? It's what the city is doing about it is the even more diabolical part. Because this is my view. This is what I think. They have now taken all of the homeless people from everywhere and they've consolidated them into a place where it's kind of out of sight and out of mind. So they think the consolidation is smart. Oh, we have...
They put a fence around them and porta potties.
We only need 1 spot for resources, 1 spot for this, 1 spot for that, right?
Yep.
The problem is that when you consolidate people that are the same into one area, the same shit's going to happen. Yeah. More crime, more this,
You're
more sex work.
Your environment.
You are literally... a girl left, one of the counselors, and she made a good point. She went to a conference somewhere else, and I think it was, she said that the police chief asked her to ask some questions like, what are people doing? And what she came up with there is they said, it is extremely important to not consolidate these tent villages.
Right.
Because when you get X amount of tents, I think it was 5, they've got the metrics, they've done the studies, because they have a larger demographic to pull from.
Right.
So everything would be much more apparent when it comes to numbers than our little demographic. They said when you get more than 5, don't quote me on this, but I think it's 5. When you get more than 5 tents in one area, right, you're tripling the amount of problems. Because that's the organized crime starts to, I'm not talking organized crime like fucking Don Vito. I'm talking about organizing crime.
Right.
You know, this is where you go and get your crack. This is where you go and get stolen shit. We're consolidating it all. So it is important, instead of having 100 tents in one area, right, that you spread all of those out. So when people talk about solving homeless, you're not going to solve the homeless problem. Yeah. All you can do is make the move on the board that is there. And the move on the board that they're not doing is separating all of these.
Right. They've allowed it to consolidate,
right,
which is then causing even more issues like we just seen in the last few days.
It is. What I think's happening, the guy that owns the lot, he's a real...
I've heard you talk about
he's
this.
a real treat to deal with. So he was the same guy...
Have you met him personally?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I know who he is. Everyone knows who he is.
Okay.
Right? And he's a do-gooder. He prances around with a do-gooder mask on. Meanwhile, he makes a large salary working for the company. I mean, he doesn't play with... He talks about building all this stuff, but it's not his money.
The city grants.
I'm actually putting my money in to try and build affordable housing. I'm actually putting nails into wood.
Yeah.
Right? I'm actually trying to build stuff. and I'm being reprimanded for it by being in an area that was allowed to be completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think that he went in doing this on purpose. But I think he's smart enough to capitalize on a situation where now the land is devalued. The entire area is devalued. I own a lot of lots on that land. I was going to develop, right? Apartment buildings, townhomes. You know what I mean? There was even talks. I was going to try. This was back. I was talking half crazy, but try and put like a 50-unit building on a big, huge lot we own there.
Yeah.
My father owns it, right?
Yep.
We were going to partner up together, and we were going to put. This is when the CMHC first rolled out some shit, and we didn't really know what it was, and ended up not being able to make it work. But that's where we were thinking. Now, trying to think of getting the fuck out of the area, right? So what I think he's smart enough to realize is that he has now devalued that area so much that he could pick up all of this stuff for pennies on the dollar. I have an apartment complex across the street. If I wasn't me and I didn't have the resources that I have, right, I would be selling that right now. And he would be able to pick up that for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right. So if I do that as a business developer, if I move in, buy a block, let it just be destroyed,
Right.
and then start buying shit up around me, I'm a monster.
Is there no bylaws for that?
So this is the big thing. He's infringing, actually breaking, not infringing. He's breaking multiple bylaws.
Well, there's got to be bylaws against that.
Unsightly and dangerous, right, is one of them. It's not zoned for a fucking tent encampment.
Right.
The zone.
Right.
So right there,
Yeah.
this is what bothers me so much is that I had a
And what's with the fence? Why do they fence them?
because he thought that would.
Is that protecting them? Is it protecting?
No,
Like,
it was to delineate some sort of.
Because now it's even
section.
more organized.
So
now it's
stupid.
This even, yeah.
Like, don't feed the animals. Right?
Damn.
You know, don't feed the animals. That's why I said, holy fuck, you're putting people in cages here now.
Yeah, you did say that.
Holy
right,
fuck,
right. Man.
It's, I mean, it's not forever. I understand that at some point something's going to have to get done. No, because they can't allow.
Why wouldn't they do something now if it's not forever? Like,
So-
now is the time to do something.
Check-
Someone just died.
This is crazy, man. I had a house that I picked up, and when I bought it, I don't know what happened, but there was an unsightly and dangerous, call it like work order or injunction or whatever the fuck was. It didn't get flagged at the lawyers. I didn't know about it, and for some reason I was able to buy the property, probably because I bought it cash and there was no mortgage, and some stuff doesn't come up when there's no mortgage,
Yeah.
right? Because it's an easy deal and the lawyers don't search hard into stuff because So I buy this
because
place.
the banks do a lot more diligence
Exactly,
when
yeah.
they're spending their money than when
Yeah.
you're spending yours.
So I buy this place, I fix it up. I got it appraised at like 280,000 or something like that, right? And it's brand new, right? So the city shows up to bulldoze it
Oh yeah.
because it was considered unsightly and dangerous from like 5-6 years ago. It was on the bulldoze thing, right? I have all my money tied. I have $260,000 of my cash tied up in there, which is a significant chunk of my own money. Now they're telling me they're going to bulldoze it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Who?
Yeah,
Who's going to bulldoze it?
I worked like a dog to try and get that off of there,
Yeah.
to get a mortgage on the place, get my money back, get back in business, take that money, put it into the affordable housing initiative I have uptown.
Yeah, so you had this place flipped. You had this place flipped,
Yeah, man.
looking beautiful.
Yeah.
This wasn't.
So they were willing to
There was
bulldoze.
no business to actually
Yeah.
bulldoze this down.
They
There
were
was no-
willing
yeah.
to enforce the bylaws
Yeah.
to bulldoze my fucking home, right?
That was new,
That was brand new.
completely renovated.
You could look at it and see this is a new home,
right,
right? No sense in bulldozing it.
right. Just because of a bylaw.
They were willing to do
yeah.
that and
Yep.
enforce the bylaws to a T. I had to work to get the lawyers going. We got the fucking bank going. I got everyone working. I did probably 16 months of work in 3 days, right? And we finally got it sorted out, right?
Crazy, man.
But it was only because I said, "Holy fuck, man! I gotta work on this project. Like, I gotta take what are you doing? You're gonna bulldoze a home."
right.
So anyway, that's fine. I get it sorted out. It was a mistake, right? My part, their part, whatever, lawyers' parts. Yeah. They're not willing to enforce the bylaws for tents.
So did you own it at that time that they had to bulldoze it?
Yeah. It was brand new.
That's crazy, man.
But this is my point.
Yeah.
They're willing to enforce bylaws. It says here in the bylaws that we have to do this. It was considered unsightly and dangerous, and we need to do this. Okay, that's great. Now it comes to the tent city, and all of a sudden the bylaw officer's been sick forever. Oh, yeah, no, he's not around. We got a big stack of stuff. We can't get around to that right now. I was like, you're willing to bulldoze a brand new home, right? Someone lives in. but you're not willing to enforce the bylaw. Do you know why? Because it solves a problem for them.
What's that?
All of these homeless people are not scattered all around uptown now.
Right,
They're
right.
consolidated, right? The guy that
Man.
owns it, I know he's got a backdoor deal with them because he's trying to build up a 42 unit or 36 unit subsidized housing. It was already shot down once or twice because he proposed it with no stoves, like stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was already shot down. They want him to build something. So they're allowing him to do the turning a blind eye.
So then you think it's a backdoor deal?
Oh yeah, for 100% it is.
Yeah.
Has to be, because I wouldn't be afforded the same liberties as him.
Yeah.
I have land. I can't put a piece of fucking equipment on the sidewalk without getting a ticket, without getting it towed. Right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if I just started pitching things on lands and
Oh, it's not allowed. Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. What a mess, man.
They
What an
got put on
absolute
the
mess.
garbage route.
Yeah, that's another crazy thing too.
they
Yeah,
got
so
put
they're right
on
on the
the
garbage
garbage
road.
road.
There's a fence around it, and they got the porta potties.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like it's now being facilitated.
Right.
As opposed to being dealt with. So
Right.
instead of actually dealing with this, we're going to facilitate it. We're going to
Right.
allow it to happen.
They got the people are
We're gonna
bringing them
control it.
propane. People are bringing every
and
day.
like
They're
that's
bringing
like their
them propane.
solution, right? Oh well, no, we got a fence around it. We got they got their garbage bins there. They got the porta potties. As if like
Right.
it's like, well, that's not fixing the problem. There's a larger problem here.
Yeah.
You're literally facilitating. You're making it easier for them.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, so keep going with that because people not being allowed to talk, man. I got a couple things I want to say on that. A buddy of mine just sent me a video of the finance minister up in Parliament. What's her name? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Gray-haired broad.
Gray-haired broad, yeah.
Yeah.
She was walking into a government building, and a reporter was walking alongside her. So he's a private reporter, licensed and everything. And he's asking her some questions about where some money's going. And
Oh, she wouldn't know that.
she's not answering anything. She
No.
keeps her head down and she's barreling by him. And actually she has this like security team that's with her. One of these guys in a suit holds strong right in the line where she's walking.
Yeah.
So that as this guy's walking beside her, he slightly bumps into her. The guy was a cop, and he arrests him for assault on a police officer.
Yeah, I actually, a friend.
Did you just see that?
Yeah, a guy that I served with overseas just commented that on one of my posts from yesterday.
That's terrifying.
He was from the CBC, wasn't he? And the CBC reported on it. Is what it was.
I don't know who reported on it, but a buddy of mine just sent it like actually right before you showed up, and I was watching that, going like, is that really what's going on right now? To a point where
silencing everyone, man, because everyone is now too afraid of being canceled, right? Or too afraid of being this, or too afraid of being seen as that.
Yeah.
That they just say nothing, because it is much easier to say nothing. Because most people just live their regular lives, and that's great for them.
Yeah.
And they have no dog in the fight.
Yeah.
Right? I always felt this, like, I don't want to say it like a sense of duty, but like when you join the military, like you do have a sense of duty. Now that's probably one of the things I'm most ashamed of, is fucking serving in this serving the government the amount of time I did, and it wasn't even very long.
Yeah.
I didn't serve very long, right? And I didn't serve that hard. It didn't have it as hard as some guys, but I'm actually ashamed of it because of how the country does things now, because of how we operate. It's not
scary,
a good system,
man. It's a scary path that we seem to be headed down. And I know it's like crippling to some people. Some people are just completely crippled by it. Going like, oh, do you see what's going on? Do you see this? And I try not to look at it. Here's the problem is, like, when you're doing your own thing, you can't let it consume you. But I don't believe that you can turn a blind eye to it either. Because if everybody turns a blind eye to it, then everybody gets run over. Everybody gets run over. Then nobody stands up to, like... Nobody's able to say, hey, that might not be right. Because at the end of the day, there's more people in Canada that are not government that I think all align similarly, where we want freedoms. We want to be able to vocalize ourselves. We want to be able to operate in a manner that where the government's not infringing and telling us what we cannot say, even the media now,
like
man,
the
even the media
like
now.
they're shutting the podcast down and they're making them register.
You can't look up like Canadian news or something. It's really strange. It's not on. It's what did they do? What is that? Bill C-16, I think.
Yeah,
is it Bill C-16?
I don't follow that stuff too. I follow it enough, and then I get angry, and then I fucking just like forget about it.
There's so much strange stuff going on right now, man.
But it's all about censorship.
It's all about censorship, but that's where you start to control people's thoughts.
Yeah, because
the way they behave.
The real narrative is to just shut people down, because for the most part, when people stand up, they're standing up with righteous convictions, right? It's real problems. And then they say, well, fuck that. We'll shut them up, right? It's not like we're not censoring. You shouldn't censor anyone, I don't think.
No.
But we're not censoring like neo-Nazis.
Right.
And we're not censoring like horrible people. We're censoring people with opinions that happen to be more correct than they are not correct.
Right.
That's the narrative now, is that, no, I don't want that. Like, the liberal government's terrible. They're just scandal after scandal after scandal.
bad,
and it's just
man.
like, just fucking jam that right under the mattress. Right?
How long's Trudeau been in power right now? He's going on like 9 years or it's crazy. I didn't realize it's funny how the pandemic made people focus on politics even more. Of
course.
I didn't know how politics operated before because everything was going fairly smooth.
Yeah.
There was no reason to look and say who's running what.
Everyone
who's
was
in control?
smoking their legal weed and they were happy. I worked at the
Did you say illegal or illegal?
They're legal.
Legal weed,
But
right.
I worked at the refinery when it was the Conservatives versus the Liberals for Trudeau to take power or not, like to win the election or not.
Yeah. I don't remember a government really without Trudeau at this point. Now.
Everyone said, these are blue collar guys like me, right? You know, everyone said, oh, fuck, we got to vote Liberal because they're going to legalize weed and then we won't be able to get fired for smoking weed when we're at home. Because that's a big thing, is that it stays in your system longer. If you smoked it 3 days ago, you might still be fired if there was an incident. Right. So they were they were thinking, if it's legal, we're going to be able to do it whenever. And I said to guys, like, when it's legal, it's going to be regulated like so fucking crazy. And everyone's like, no. So all these blue collar fucking guys that I knew, they all voted Liberal. Yeah. And then 4 years later,
that was the big selling point on it, was the weed.
Yeah, man.
That was the big selling point.
He got elected because of weed.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
It is when you look back.
But it was effective.
Nobody was saying anything else.
Brilliant.
He's going to legalize weed.
It was
And that was
brilliant.
all you needed to say.
That's
He's
all-
going to
yeah.
legalize weed. Everybody.
And now it's worse than probably, I mean, I never smoked weed. I never even bought weed, right? I'm not a weed guy, so I don't know too much about fucking weed, right? But it's probably worse now. You could just get it more.
Yeah.
You can get it easier. But like workplaces.
I think it's even stronger now is the thing.
Yeah,
I think the weed's even stronger because now it's grown in a lab. Like before, that's one thing I've heard from a lot of weed smokers is that the old fellas I talked to, they were like, man, the weed today is so much different because it's stronger. It's grown in a lab. And that actually makes it more potent, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the stuff that they were smoking was this homegrown stuff where they'd smoke a little bit, get a little bit of a funny feeling, have a good time. The stuff you do now,
yeah, you're fucking comatose.
paralyzes you.
Yeah.
You're drooling, your eyes are red, you're just rummaging through the cupboards. And I mean, that happened when people got high anyway, but like it's just more potent now. And I don't think people know what the side effects of that are on a mass scale of everybody. Like, and look, I've smoked my fair share of weed. I'll say it. I'm not going to hide anything. I have before. It's legal. But I know this. I don't operate smoothly. I'm not as smooth. I've been sober now for 9 days, like completely alcohol, everything, just completely everything. And I feel the best I've felt in a long time. Yeah. And I do these stints every once in a while where I just clean everything out. I'm just going to kind of get dialed back in, get into the zone, get the mental toughness going again, get all the wires operating correctly again. And man, the weed, the whole weed thing, man, it's an interesting thing. Another thing that sucks is the fact that the government pretty well controls it. Well, so it's not even privatized here in New Brunswick.
Coming a mile away.
Yeah. Right? But in other provinces.
Especially in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
No, but in New Brunswick, you had to see it a mile away because if there's money in something, the government will regulate it. Yeah. They've already proven that, right? Yeah. They have a complete all-around grasp on liquor.
NB cannabis.
Right. Everything. If there's money in it, right? That's why I always say they say, the government needs to build more housing. I was like, well, if there was money, because people talk about how much money there is being a landlord. Yeah. If there was that much money in it, then the government would be doing it.
True. That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
If there was that much money in landlords are making so much money. And yeah, some of them do very well, especially over the course of time. Real estate will inevitably make you rich if you've done it properly. Yeah. But if there was so much money in real estate, the government would be into it. But there's not, and they're not.
People don't talk about the risk though. There's probably there's definitely a lot of stories of people buying a piece of property, investing a lot of their money. They could save up for 15 years, save up all kinds of money, invest it into a property that is an absolute dive. Things are a nightmare and they need to sell at a loss. And they're walking away licking their wounds going, I'm never going to do that again. People don't talk about the risk that the landlords take of their own capital, their own money, their own investments. That, like you said, you saved up from when you were working a blue collar job in order to be able to get your first property. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, took me 5 years to do my first house.
Nobody talks about the risk that they go through and the risk that it entails to purchase the property and create good living for people, because it's inevitably going to work out if you do it properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're doing, you could lose a lot of money too.
I just had that stereotypical time in every, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but like business person's life. I had that I'm fucking losing everything a few months ago, right? I lost hair because of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I felt stress before, been in gunfights before, been in fist fights, felt stress. But that was a different animal. I was like, oh, I'm losing everything. We're talking about, like, you know, for a single person to lose everything that they've got. Right? I was like, I'm done. I'm fucking done. And then I just like rose up from the ashes like a fucking phoenix. And I was like, I felt deadly. But I had that one, oh my fuck, week where I was like, I'm tits up. I'm fucking bankrupt. I'm losing the home, the vehicles, fucking, you know what I mean? I'm being a little bit dramatic because I have a lot of stuff paid for. Right. But I was like, I stood to lose a lot and go back to square one. Yeah. And then luckily I was able to pull through. And I fucking everything just worked. It was to that point where everything that had to happen happened, and it just barely happened. Yep. And that was the difference, man. If there was one thing that went a little bit left or right, it would have been completely different outcome.
And that's a scary stress too, because like you said, you've been in very stressful situations, but when you're in a fight, that's a stress where you can instantly deal with it because it's a situation in front of you. Yeah. When you're talking about this type of like overlooming business situations of having money on the line, different regulations and bylaws and all these rules you got to follow, and then the government looking for the taxes and all this stuff that it takes to run multi-units and be an investor. These are all things that it feels like things that you can't always control. No. It's not things that you can just go, oh, I'm going to knock this guy out, the problem's solved. Right. That doesn't fix it. It's like, and then that stress is looming on you, and when you can't deal with it, it's like, it's the same as if there was like a lion stalking you, but 24/7. There's nothing you can fucking do. And there's nothing you can do, and you're just like, what the hell do I do? Your brain doesn't know. People's brains don't know how to handle that.
No. No, and I have a really long-winded version of what I'm going to tell you, but I have a really short, because I came from the steel industry, I came from the welding, and I worked on bridges. I think that there's two types of stress, and I kind of do live by this, and I think it's fairly accurate, at least for me. There's two types of stress. There's two types of stress on a bridge: kinetic and dynamic, right?
Interesting.
Or sorry, static and dynamic.
Static and dynamic.
So there's a certain amount of both that the bridge is designed to take, right? But at some point, if the bridge is overloaded, right, if it's overloaded with either a static or a dynamic stress, it's going to fail. It hits what's called a yield point, right? I've been years out of the steel industry now, so I'm probably a little shaky on it, but the steel hits a yield point where it will not return back to its original state, right? So I define two types of stress. There's business stress, right? Which to me is the static stress on a bridge that the bridge is designed to take. Right. You are designed to take business stress because you've knowingly entered into it. Yeah. You've willingly entered into it. Right. You have been designed over the years of doing this to take those kinds of stresses. The second type of stress that would be equivalent to a dynamic overload would be the drama stress, the family stress, your girlfriend's cheating on you stress. That's the stress that kills you. You don't die from business stress. I think you die from that that stress.
Someone's got cancer.
You
Somebody's got, yeah.
You don't become compromised as a human being from stress you were designed and entered in to take. You get beaten down and destroyed from the stresses of the things you can't control.
Do you think some people come into a situation not understanding how much stress that might entail with
100%. But if you've come up hard, and I don't mean hard like you had to have been beaten as a child. I mean, if you've come up how you're supposed to come up.
Right.
Right? And I'm going to say as a man, because it's me. If you've come up as a man, how you're supposed to come up with enduring hardships, struggle, failing, passing, success, failures, all of that stuff. If you come up properly, all of that stuff helps you deal with that.
Right.
That's why people, when they win the lottery, are broke. They do not have the ability to manage what they've just been given because it wasn't hard for them to get it.
Right. They didn't actually, they don't know how to make money.
They don't have the ability to manage it. It's the same. They don't have the ability to manage money. The same as people who just get thrown in, we'll reference a fist fight, who have never been in any kind of physical altercation before. They do not have the experience to deal with it properly.
Right.
You can lose a fight and still have dealt with it properly. Yeah. That man was just better than you.
Yep.
He was angrier. He was stronger.
There's got to be a winner and there's got to be a loser.
But that does not mean that you didn't handle it properly.
Right. Right. And the thing I find with the business stress is a lot of it gets easier over time. The more under stress you are for durations of a manageable stress, of a manageable business stress, it starts to become easier, and then you're actually able to load up a little more.
You should
and it's almost like weight. It's almost like weight at the gym.
Stress.
It's almost like weight at the gym, right? When you start off, if you've never gone to the gym before, you start off with, if you're doing squats, maybe you're just doing the bar, maybe you're doing body weight, and then eventually you start putting weight on your back, and maybe it's just one plate, and you start doing that. And it's just like in business, it's like you then take on a little bit of a burden, and then as you get better and the muscle grows and develops to handle that stress, and that becomes now almost a habit, and it almost becomes like, it feels like it's no longer there. Like, you know it's there, but it's completely manageable. It's no longer consuming any of your mental capacity. You're able to then process other information and deal with that stress too. Then you take on a little bit more, and then you take on a little bit more. And some people are just better at taking on larger amounts faster than others, or some people are better at navigating through that. But I think that's the process in business too, is putting on manageable stress and keep loading it on if you do want to grow. Well,
of course. Look back at your time in the Army. Show me how someone deals with stress, and I'll show you how effective and successful they will be in any endeavor.
Yeah.
If you cannot deal with stress, you'll constantly be subjected to the people that can.
Yeah.
Always. There is no scenario where you can't deal with stress and you're competing against someone that can, and you come out on top.
Right. No, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Because then the cortisol in your brain just actually it blocks actually your brain from being able to function.
Yeah.
So if somebody gets so stressed out, it's like they can't process anything. Like everything just glazes over.
Yeah, we had guys that would just spin. Just spin in the Army. Just spin. I know people that, you know what I mean? They're fucking pointing at this, they're doing that.
Yeah, they got no idea what's going on.
Just shooting orders around, and you're just like, well, that's a fucking minefield.
Or someone
just going there.
Or someone just starts screaming.
Yeah.
You see the guys that get so stressed out that they just start screaming, and it's not actually making sense.
No, none of it makes sense.
Like it's not in a productive way.
No.
And I find some people, man, a lot of people in business, like when they do get really stressed out, they'll start screaming and shit. And like, look, I've gotten pissed off over stuff before, but I try not to fire it at anybody. And like anytime, I've heard stories of like different real estate agents yelling at each other and stuff. And I think like, how foolish is that to yell in a real estate transaction where nobody's life's on the line? A lot of financial investments are on the line. It should be taken with the utmost seriousness. But I think that screaming should be resolved, or should be should be left for threatening moments.
Right. Like in business, because I am naturally a more aggressive person, and I think that's probably a character trait that I had to take on because I was picked on as a kid.
Yeah.
So when I became physically able to be effective physically, right, and I was willing to go the distance physically, I think I had to take on that characteristic of being like that. It's a defense mechanism, I'm sure.
Of what, screaming?
No, like being more aggressive. Naturally.
Being more aggressive, yeah.
But
that's a whole difference, though. There's a major difference between aggressiveness and just like freaking out and losing control of yourself.
I have to be so angry to act like that in business that it would, I don't even know. I can
Somebody would have
think
to
of
like really wrong you.
the last time that I was angry like that and I whipped my phone, I was just trying to get through to someone and that they just were not doing what I wanted to do. That's the last time I remember being that angry. And I just remember whipping the phone, and I remember being that's not effective.
It's not effective.
But for some
no.
reason, I just, because I'm really, really trying to not be
It feels
that
good
person. It
sometimes,
does, yeah.
But that's not good. It's
No,
like
it's not effective.
it's not effective. It's like
And
this. Yeah,
it's
it's a thing that feels good temporarily, but then when you look back on it, that doesn't feel good that you did that.
So what I'm saying is, I would have to be so overwhelmed and so angry to act like that now that I don't know what it would take.
But I'm sure you see
and people act like that all the time.
That's what I'm saying. People act like that all the time. That's what
Right?
I'm saying, right? Is that you do have people who just, because business is a stressful thing. And then when they get to this point where they now lose control of their emotions and their being just because there's so much happening. And it's like people.
But it's a tell. You've obviously never been here before.
Right.
You've obviously never been to this level.
Right.
Right? You've never negotiated or bargained or talked at this level, obviously. And you've obviously never done it around, these people.
Right.
Because you would realize that it's not effective. Right?
It's like a parent that screams a lot. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
it's just
I'm one of them for sure.
Are you?
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah,
but I looked them dead in the eye, and I'm
probably
just like...
but at good times, though. Like at the right moments. Like, not just, like, freaking out because you're stressed out or, like...
Not just spinning.
Spinning,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all the right place and like, right time, for sure. And I guess so when I was saying, like, it should be resolved for, like, people being in harm is only, like, in business, I mean. Like, it's like...
Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. I mean, especially from the real estate agent point of view, because you have to be so amicable all the time. I would never do business. If a real estate agent ever yelled at me, I don't even know what would happen. I would just like...
It's like, what?
I was like, well, first of all, I'd never do business with them ever again.
Right.
Second, the first thing I'd do is I'd be on Facebook blasting their fucking name all over because it's unprofessional. You can't act like that.
Yeah.
There's certain businesses where you can be like blue collar stuff. You can be a little rougher.
Oh, yeah. Everybody is in the blue collar industry. Yeah.
Because it's it's more accepted.
Yep.
And I don't know why it's more accepted, because it's not that anyone is of lower intelligence or anything.
A lot of that stuff is dangerous too, though.
Yeah.
A lot of shit people are doing are dangerous, and you have to keep people in line that way. It's just like in the military, in a way. That's almost similar. That's more similar to the military than it is to business, right?
Yeah.
Being a blue collar is more similar to kind of military style.
You could. That's why a lot of people transition the helmets to hard hats thing.
Helmets to hard hats.
Not that it did me any fucking good, but
I like that.
I got out. There was like no resources. You know what I mean? It was 2010 when I got out.
Mm-hmm.
But like, military guys, I think, transition way better to like trades types of jobs than they do anything else, because it's similar. You can say fuck and shit and make fun of your friend.
Right.
And it's not like it's an office where like you're going to be charged with harassment, you know what I mean, for making fun of Nikki. Right? He's like, Nikki, he's my buddy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is how we talk. So that's why it's a little bit more acceptable. But like, I was an apprentice in the Boilermakers, and I had one guy, and he had a really, really shitty tone with me. And I was just like, super calmly, I said, like, who the fuck are you talking to like that? And then it just instantly changed. Yeah. Right? Whereas opposed, naturally, I wanted to like fucking lose my mind back. And I was like, well, that's just perpetuating craziness. But I just asked him really sternly and really like directly. I just asked him, who the fuck are you talking to like that? Yep. And then he just like,
and then like that would make him check himself going, oh shit. Yeah. Because when you react calmly like that, it's almost intimidating to other people, right? Because it's like you have your emotions under control.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm definitely like, I was really bad. I used to pride myself on not losing control, but like thinking that you could overtly like show how dominant you were by being aggressive. And now I'm trying to do the exact opposite.
Me too.
I spent the last 10 years basically trying to take that aggressiveness and not take it away from me. But at least
learn to control it.
Yeah, only have to use it when you have to use it. Like I think it was Jordan Peterson, and everyone says the same thing. It's like being a dangerous man How's the
Yeah,
quote go?
so that one goes,
'Cause it's good.
You don't want to be a harmless man. You want to
Right.
be somebody who's a monster but able to control it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So there's no honor in being a harmless person.
Right.
Somebody going around saying I'd never harm anybody. There's no honor in that. But it's when you're able to harm others or able to pretty well create chaos and be a monster, but then you control that. That's when it's honorable.
Right, because
that's when it's
there's no if someone can't do something,
yeah.
it's not honorable or impressive if they don't do that.
Right.
It's if someone does exert self-control when they could just kick the ever-loving shit right out of you.
It's like, so it kind of goes back to like the martial arts and boxing, right? It's like if somebody's a black belt in karate and they just go around kicking the shit out of everybody for no reason.
Yeah.
Just go around and start fucking throwing kicks.
Yeah.
Like, and just doing all this karate stuff. But it's like, if you can't control it, it's like, oh man, that guy's a friggin',
Yeah.
he's an idiot. That guy's an idiot going around just kicking people for no reason. He's really good at what he does, but he's just harming a bunch of other people. That's not admirable.
Yeah.
It's when he's able to do that, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And he goes around calmly and talks to people calmly.
Yeah.
And in a very violent situation, addresses it very calmly. And then everybody's going, ooh, okay, maybe I should kind of watch myself here. There's certain signals people have to look out for people like that, right?
Yeah.
There's obvious ones when you have the cauliflower ears.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are like, it's like having a big antler as an animal. It's like you're just walking around with massive antlers. It's a big signal, like,
probably.
I've been through a lot of physical altercations on a mat where I'm just grappling and just wrestling people in. Isn't that from the mat rubbing into your ear and just like all the cartilage
I think it's
build
just
up?
from everything rubbing into everything.
Everything rubbing into everything.
Wrestlers
right,
used to get it a
right.
lot because they were always clenched in tight, and I think probably the types of helmets that they wore had something to do with it. I don't really know.
And then when you see somebody with that, you go, oh, that's a dangerous person.
Yeah, because I did jiu-jitsu for years, and I don't have cauliflower ear.
Right. It's like
So
you need to do a
It's
lot of
yeah, and
just
it's like you need to be
rubbing and tearing
man.
consistently of the cartilage in your
Yeah, yeah.
ears so that it
It's
just
gotta
keeps
be like-
busting and healing and busting and
that's
healing.
right.
Yeah, it's craziness, man.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Yeah, man.
How we doing here? Let's what do you want to end with?
I mean, whatever you want. What are you thinking?
I think this was a great episode. I'm looking forward to throwing this together.
Yeah.
Can have you back on anytime, man. We covered a lot here today. I really appreciate you coming on, spending your time here. And if anybody has any questions or wants to know more about Ryan, go give him a follow. What's the best way to track?
I mean, I'm
what you got
on
going
Instagram. Obviously, like I said, I'm trying to I'm going to try and throw some shirts. I don't expect anything big, but I am trying to show some sort of appreciation for blue collar workers. So what I'm going to do is at the start of it, to kind of throw my campaign together, I'm going to end up finding something that I can donate 100% of all the profits to. I'm looking to partner with some people to help. They're going to help me get my merchandise out to market, and in return, I'm going to donate 100% of the profits. I don't need the profits to live, so I'm not looking to make any money off it. But I do want to bring some sort of awareness in a cool way to blue collar workers. So my Instagram is Union Smoke Break at Union Smoke Break.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, I got a website. It's functional, but there's no merchandise up right now. I'm working on that with a local guy. We're getting it printed as we speak. Actually, it's unionsmokebreak.com. Okay. So that's the best thing to get me. So I mean, maybe next time I'm on, I'll have a little bit more information on that, and we'll see if we can find some worthy people to, like charities or anything like that. I'm willing to, if it's a good cause, right? I'm willing to donate profits from the sales of the shirts and all the merchandise to them. So
awesome.
Yeah, man. No, it was fun. It was fun being on. I like talking shit. That's
man.
what I
We
do.
got a lot of it. We got a lot of it on here. It's good, man.
Yeah.
I just, like I said at the start of this, you got a lot of interesting opinions, man. And I want to sit down with more people like you, local people. Real estate is about people. Real estate is a people business. And I think that it's just important to have open dialogue like this that can be shared.
Yeah.
And for other people to listen to, whether it's going to maybe spark some insight, maybe it'll encourage people to speak their mind a little bit more, maybe it'll encourage them to get on and share some opinions. I think that it's important people do that, especially in this day and age right now where there's so much fear of people to even share an opinion, and that shouldn't be the way it is.
Well, like Winston Churchill said, I think he said it anyway, and I better be fucking right because I'm on record now. Someone
That's
doesn't.
all good. Pretty shoot the shit.
People don't like you. Good. It means at some point
You stood for something.
You stood for something.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know?
Let's end on that.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm on.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
No problem, dude.